The Great Hall of Station Prime was built to make visitors feel small. Crystal pillars rose 300 meters into the air. Light from a dying star poured through windows made of compressed diamond. 12 thrones sat in a circle, each one carved from materials found only on the homeworlds of the elder species. For 6 million years, this hall had been the center of galactic civilization. Ambassador. Una Park stood at the speaking platform in the middle of the circle. She was 43 years old. To the beings watching her, she was practically an infant. The Valorian High Minister had lived for 12,000 years. The Meridian Observer had seen stars born and die. These creatures measured time in centuries the way humans measured days. Una kept her back straight and her face calm. She had learned long ago that showing emotion in this hall was seen as weakness. The human delegation requests permission to address the matter of the colonial redistribution order, she said. Her voice was steady. The Valorian High Minister made a sound that might have been laughter. His body was tall and thin, covered in scales that shifted color with his mood. Right now, they were a pale yellow. Amusement. The matter has already been decided, he said. 3 of your colony worlds will be transferred to Valorian administration. This is not a discussion. This is a notification. Those worlds hold 40 million human citizens, Una replied. They built those colonies. They have lived there for generations. Generations. The Meridian Observer spoke now. It was a cloud of connected particles, a hive mind that had existed since before Earth's sun had formed. Your generations last, what, 30 years? 40? You speak of time as if you understand it. Soft laughter rippled through the hall. Una felt her hands tighten into fists behind her back. She forced them to relax. The Galaxy Council Charter guarantees the rights of all member species to their established territories, she said. Provisional member species, the Valorian corrected. Humanity has not earned full membership. You have been part of this union for 60 years. 60 years is nothing. Come back in 10,000 years, and perhaps we will discuss your rights. The vote was called. 11 species voted in favor of the redistribution. 1 abstained. None voted against. Una walked out of the hall with her head held high. She did not let them see her shake. 3 days later, she stood in a military command center on Earth. The city of souls spread out below the windows. 20 million people living their lives, unaware of what was coming. Admiral Sun Wukang stood beside her, his uniform crisp, his gray hair cut short. He was 61 years old, the commander of humanity's entire defense fleet. 40 ships. That was all they had. 40 ships to protect 8 billion people across 12 worlds. The intelligence reports are confirmed, Sun Wu said. His voice was quiet, meant only for her. The Valorians plan to take 7 more worlds after the first 3. They want to box us in completely. No room to expand. No room to grow. They want us to die slowly, Una said. Yes. General Doyan Li entered the room. He was older than Sun Wu, his face lined with decades of service. He had built Earth's military from nothing, fighting for every ship, every soldier, every weapon against politicians who thought the galaxy was safe. I spoke with our contacts in the Meridian Collective, Doyan said. Off the record, they told me the truth. The elder species have a name for what they are doing to us. Una asked. Soft extinction. They do not kill young species directly. That would be barbaric. Instead, they contain them, limit their growth, wait for them to stagnate and die on their own. Doyan sat down heavily. They have done it before. Dozens of times. Species that could have been great, slowly strangled over thousands of years. Na closed her eyes. She thought of her daughter, 8 years old, learning to read, dreaming of seeing alien worlds. What kind of future would she have? A future of bowing and begging? A future of watching humanity shrink smaller and smaller until there was nothing left? No, she said. Both men looked at her. No, she repeated. I will not let that happen. I will not let my children inherit a cage. Ambassador, Sun Wu said carefully, we cannot win a war against them. The Valorian fleet alone has 8,000 warships. We have 40. then we do not fight their kind of war. Yuna turned to face them. Humanity did not conquer Earth by being the strongest species. We were not the fastest or the largest. We survived because we adapted, because we refused to die. Because when something tried to kill us, we found a way to kill it first. Do-Yan and Sunwoo exchanged glances. Something passed between them. A decision that had been waiting for this moment. "There is something you should see," Do-Yan said. "Something we have been building in secret for 15 years. They took her to an underground facility beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province. The elevator descended for 3 full minutes. When the doors opened, Una found herself in a vast cavern filled with equipment she did not recognize. A woman in a white coat approached them. She was young, no more than 35, with sharp eyes and quick movements. "Ambassador Park," the woman said. "I am Dr. Hannah Choi. Welcome to Project Prometheus." "What is this place?" Yuna asked. "This is where we break the rules." Hannah smiled, but there was no humor in it. "The Galaxy Council forbids young species from developing certain technologies, weapons that could threaten the elder races. For 60 years, we have publicly obeyed those restrictions." She led them deeper into the facility. Yuna saw weapons she could not name, ships unlike anything in Earth's official fleet, devices that hummed with strange energy. Privately, Hannah continued, "We have been preparing for this day. The day they pushed us too far." Yuna stared at the arsenal before her. Hope and terror mixed in her chest. "Can we win?" she asked. Hannah stopped walking. She turned to face the ambassador, and her eyes were cold and bright. "The elder species have not fought a real war in 50,000 years. They have forgotten what it means to face an enemy that would rather die than surrender. They think war is a game of numbers, of counting ships and soldiers." She gestured at the weapons around them. "We are going to teach them what war really means." Yuna thought of her daughter again. She thought of 40 million people about to lose their homes. She thought of a galaxy that looked at humanity and saw nothing worth respecting. She took a deep breath. "Tell me everything," she said. The emergency session of Earth's United Council lasted for 7 days. Leaders from every nation sat in the Great Chamber in Geneva, arguing, shouting, some of them weeping. The weight of what they were discussing pressed down on all of them like a physical thing. War. Real war. Against enemies that could destroy them 1,000 times over. General Do-Yan Lee stood before them on the final day. He was tired. They were all tired. But there was fire in his eyes that had not been there in years. "I will not lie to you," he said. "If we fight a conventional war, we will lose. The numbers are not close. The Valorians alone have 200 ships for every one of ours. Their technology is more advanced. Their soldiers have trained for thousands of years." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Fear, despair. "The Valorians have never fought a species like us." He pressed a button, and images appeared on the screens around the room. Human history. Battles from every era. Small groups defeating larger armies. Weak nations bringing down empires. Soldiers fighting to the last breath against impossible odds. "We call this the doctrine of asymmetry," Do-Yan said. "We do not fight the war they expect. We do not line up our ships against theirs and let them count who has more. We fight like humans have always fought. We cheat. We adapt. We make them bleed for every inch." Dr. Hannah Choi stepped forward. She looked small in that great chamber, but her voice carried clearly. "For 15 years, Project Prometheus has studied the elder species. Their ships. Their weapons. Their weaknesses." She smiled slightly. "They have many weaknesses. They have not needed to improve their military technology in millennia. They have not faced a true threat since before Earth had life." She showed them the weapons. Micro-drones that could swarm and destroy ships from the inside. Viruses that could corrupt alien computer systems. Biological agents designed to affect only specific species. Stealth technology that could hide entire fleets. "They banned us from developing these things because they knew what we could do with them," Hannah said. "They were right to be afraid." The vote came at midnight. Every nation on Earth had to agree. War could not be declared by some and ignored by others. Humanity would stand together or not at all. The count was unanimous. Every nation, every leader, every vote. Humanity chose war. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Unipark walked back into the great hall of Station Prime. She wore her formal robes, black and simple. Her face showed nothing. Her heart beat fast. But no one could see that. The Galaxy Council had gathered to receive humanity's response to the redistribution order. Most of them expected an apology, perhaps some begging. The young species always broke eventually. The Valorian High Minister sat on his throne, his scales shifting to the pale yellow of amusement. He had already drafted the plans for the next 7 worlds he would take from humanity. In 100 years, there would be nothing left of them. Another failed species. Another footnote in galactic history. The human delegation may speak, he announced. Una walked to the speaking platform. She stood where she had stood so many times before, small and alone in that vast hall. But something was different this time. She did not look up at them with the eyes of someone asking for mercy. 60 years ago, she began. You found us. We were just learning to travel between stars. We were children excited to discover we were not alone in the universe. The council members listened with bored expressions. They had heard speeches like this before. You told us the rules of your galaxy. You told us our place. We were young, you said. We needed to learn. We needed to wait. And we believed you. Una paused. When she spoke again, her voice was harder. We waited. We obeyed. We watched as you took our resources. We stayed silent as you mocked us in this very hall. We hoped that someday you would see us as equals. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small data chip. The movement was slow and deliberate. That hope is dead. For the first time, some of the council members shifted in their seats. Something in her tone had changed. Something was wrong. This data chip contains humanity's formal declaration of war against the Valorian Dominion, Una said. It also contains a declaration of war against any species that chooses to stand with them. Silence. Then laughter. The Valorian High Minister's scales turned bright orange with genuine amusement. War? He said, You have 40 ships. We have 8,000. This is not brave, Ambassador. This is suicide. Una smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You have 8,000 ships, she agreed. We have 8 billion humans. 8 billion beings who have spent their entire evolutionary history learning one skill above all. Others, she leaned toward the microphone. How to kill things bigger than ourselves. The Valorian stopped laughing. His scales flickered uncertainly. We hunted animals 10 times our size with sticks and rocks, Una continued. We drove species to extinction with nothing but patience and cleverness. We fought each other for 200,000 years, perfecting the art of destruction. Every generation of humans has known war. Every generation has learned new ways to kill. She held up the data chip. You have lived in peace for 50,000 years. You have forgotten what we have never forgotten. She dropped the chip on the speaking platform. Class is in session. Alarms screamed throughout Station Prime. Red lights flashed. The council members rose from their thrones in confusion and fear. In orbit around a dozen Valorian military stations, human ships appeared from nowhere. They had been hidden there for years. Waiting, cloaked, silent, patient, Captain Jiho Moon sat on the bridge of the stealth cruiser. Silent Dawn, he was young for a captain, only 32. But he had trained his entire adult life for this moment. All ships report ready, his communications officer said. Jiho looked at the Valorian station on his view screen. It was enormous, home to 500 warships. The crew had no idea what was about to happen. Fire, he said. Across council space, 12 Valorian military installations exploded simultaneously. 2,300 ships destroyed in their docks before they could power their engines. The largest military strike in galactic history, and it lasted less than 3 minutes. Back in the Great Hall, the Valorian High Minister stared at the emergency reports flooding his screens. His scales had gone completely white. Shock. Terror. Ambassador Unipark walked toward the exit. She did not run. She did not hurry. She walked like someone who had all the time in the world. At the door, she stopped and turned back to face the council. "You wanted to know what humans are," she said. "Now you know." She walked out of the hall. Behind her, the Galaxy Council erupted into chaos. The war had begun, in Seoul. General Doyenlee watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The first strike had succeeded beyond their best projections. The Valorians had lost nearly a third of their fleet before firing a single shot, but he did not celebrate. This was only the beginning. The enemy would recover. They would respond with overwhelming force. The real war was still to come. He thought about the soldiers who would die, the civilians who would suffer, the long years of blood and fire that lay ahead. Then he thought about his grandchildren and the future they deserved. "Worth it," he said quietly. "Whatever it costs." Worth it, the galaxy watched and laughed. Despite the shock of the first strike, no one truly believed humanity could win. The betting pools opened within hours of the declaration of war. Most species wagered that humanity would surrender within 30 days. Some said 20. The most generous estimate was 90 days. Temin Yoon was a war correspondent. He had spent 15 years covering conflicts across human space. Small wars, border disputes, nothing that mattered to the rest of the galaxy. Now he was aboard a refugee ship fleeing the outer colonies, broadcasting to anyone who would listen. "Day 12 of the war," he said into his camera. "The Valorian fleet is mobilizing. 400 warships are heading toward the Proxima sector. Our forces in that area number 12 vessels." He paused, looking out the window at the stars. "The galaxy expects us to die quickly. They expect us to realize our mistake and beg for mercy. They do not understand us at all. The Battle of Proxima Gate would become legendary. 400 Valorian warships against 12 human defenders." The math was simple. The outcome seemed certain. Admiral Sun Wukong had chosen Captain Jiho Moon to command the defense. It was a strange choice. Jiho was young. He had never commanded more than a single ship. But Sun Wu saw something in him that others missed. "You do not think like a soldier," Sun Wu had told him. "You think like a hunter. That is what we need." Jiho gathered his 12 captains in a virtual conference. Their faces appeared on screens around his command center, each one showing the same mixture of fear and determination. "We cannot win a straight fight," Jiho said, "so we will not fight straight. Operation Hornet's Nest begins in 6 hours. The Valorian fleet commander was named Torvak. He had led military forces for 3,000 years. He had never lost a battle. As his ships approached Proxima Gate, he felt almost bored. This would not even be a fight. It would be an execution. His sensors showed the 12 human ships waiting ahead, tiny things barely worth noticing. He ordered his fleet into standard attack formation. 5 waves of 80 ships each. Overwhelming force. Clean, efficient. "Fire at will," he commanded. The first wave opened fire. Plasma beams and particle cannons tore through space toward the human ships. It should have ended there, but the human ships had already moved. They scattered in 12 different directions, faster than Torvak expected. And as they moved, they released something into space. Millions of somethings. Micro-dash drones, each one the size of a human fist, spread across the battlefield like a swarm of insects. Autonomous missiles, programmed to seek Valorian engine signatures, launched in every direction. Sensor jamming chaff filled space with electronic noise. Torvak's targeting systems went blind. His ships could not lock onto the human vessels. They could not even track the swarms of tiny weapons flooding toward them. "What is this?" he demanded. "What are they doing?" No one could answer him. Lieutenant Sora Han flew a fighter craft through the chaos. She was 28 years old, a pilot since she could walk, the best in her squadron. Her ship was small and fast, designed for exactly this kind of battle. "Go, squadron, form on me," she called. "We have 30 seconds before they adapt. Make them count." 12 fighters dove into the swarm of confused Valorian ships. Their targets were painted on their screens. Command vessels. The big ones. The important ones. Sora's fighters slipped between 2 destroyers that were firing blindly at clouds of drones. She could see the command ship ahead, a massive vessel twice the size of anything humanity had ever built. Its shields were down, redirected to try to stop the swarm attacks. She armed her weapon. A single nuclear device, small enough to fit in her cargo hold, powerful enough to crack a planet. "Knock, knock," she whispered, and released the bomb. The command ship exploded. The blast wave destroyed 3 nearby cruisers. Sora pulled her fighter up and away, her heart pounding, her hands steady on the controls. Across the battlefield, her squadron did the same. 11 more nuclear devices. 11 more command ships turned to fire and debris. Without their command vessels, the Valorian fleet fell into confusion. Ships crashed into each other. Captains gave contradictory orders. The swarms of drones continued to tear into their hulls. 3 hours later, it was over. The Valorians lost 167 ships destroyed and 18,900 disabled, more than half their force. The humans lost 2 ships and 340 personnel. Temin broadcast the results to the galaxy. He stood in front of a window showing the debris field, the remains of the greatest military defeat the Valorians had suffered in 50,000 years. "They told us we were small," he said. "They were right. They told us we were weak. They were right about that too," he gestured at the wreckage. "But they forgot something. Small and weak is how humanity started. We were prey animals on a dangerous world, and we conquered that world anyway." The galaxy stopped laughing. The Meridian Collective, observers who prided themselves on understanding all things, released an analysis that spread across every information network. "Human military doctrine is unlike anything in galactic records," the report stated. "They do not seek to defeat enemy fleets. They seek to make fleet combat itself obsolete. They do not fight wars of numbers. They fight wars of creativity. Every engagement must be approached as if facing an entirely new form of combat, because with humans, it probably is." 3 species quietly withdrew their support from the Valorians. They did not join humanity. They simply stepped back and watched. Hyun Shin was not a soldier. He was a hacker, a cyber warfare specialist, the best Earth had ever produced. He worked in a basement in Busan, surrounded by screens. Connected to systems across the galaxy through networks the elder species did not know existed. "The Valorian military network is old," he reported to General Doyan. "They built it 40,000 years ago and never updated it. They never needed to. No one has attacked them in all that time. Can you break it?" Doyon asked. Heian smiled. "I already have. I have been inside their systems for 3 years, watching, learning, waiting." He cracked his knuckles. "Give me the word, and I will blind them. Every sensor, every communication relay, every navigation computer, they will not know where their own ships are." Doyan thought about it. Electronic warfare. Invisible attacks. Fighting a war without firing a shot? "Do it," he said. Across the galaxy, the Valorian fleet began to malfunction. Ships received orders to go to the wrong locations. Supply convoys disappeared. Battle groups lost contact with their commanders. It was not dramatic. It was not obvious. It was just enough to make everything harder. Captain Jiho watched the reports from his new flagship. The war was young. The real battles were still to come. But something had changed. He could feel it. The galaxy had looked at humanity and seen victims. Now they saw something else. Something that made even the oldest species hesitate. They saw predators. Sora sat in her fighter bay, watching the mechanics repair damage from the battle. Her hands were still shaking. She had killed thousands of Valorians today. She did not feel proud. She did not feel guilty. She just felt tired. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Earth, from her mother. "We saw your transmission," her mother wrote. "The whole world saw it." Your father cried. "He is so proud. We all are. Come home safe." Sora read the message 3 times. Then she put her head down and slept. Tomorrow, there would be more fighting. More death. More impossible odds. But tonight, she rested. And somewhere out there, The galaxy was finally starting to understand what it meant to go to war with humanity. The war entered its second year. The Valorians committed everything they had. 8,000 ships became 12,000, then 20,000. They pulled forces from across their empire, leaving colonies undefended, stripping outposts bare. They were determined to crush humanity, no matter the cost. The humans refused to break. Kepler-4 for 2b was a mining colony. 2 million people lived there, digging or from the mountains, raising families, building lives. When the Valorian fleet surrounded the planet, everyone expected the colony to surrender. That was what reasonable species did when faced with overwhelming force. The colonists did not surrender. Sergeant Major Wu Jiang had retired from military service 15 years ago. He was 63 years old, a grandfather, a man who had traded his weapons for gardening tools. When the Valorian ships appeared in orbit, he gathered the other veterans together. "They want us to give up," he said. "They want us to be good prisoners and wait for rescue that might never come." He looked at the men and women around him, old soldiers with gray hair and lined faces. "What do you say?" They armed themselves with mining equipment. Plasma cutters became weapons. Drilling charges became bombs. The underground tunnels that honeycombed the mountains became fortresses. When the Valorian ground forces landed, they expected frightened civilians. They found an army. The siege lasted 9 months. The Valorians had air support, artillery, and soldiers who had trained for centuries. The humans had tunnels, improvised weapons, and something the Valorians did not understand. They had absolutely no intention of surrendering ever. Every street became a battlefield. Every building became a trap. The colonists fought from the windows of their homes. They fought in the schools and hospitals. They fought until they ran out of ammunition, and they fought with knives and stones and bare hands. Wu led a group of defenders in the eastern tunnels. They held a position that the Valorians needed to take. For 3 weeks, wave after wave of enemy soldiers tried to break through. None succeeded. Why do they keep fighting? A young Valorian officer asked his commander. They cannot win. Their military is nowhere near this planet. They gain nothing by resisting. The commander did not have an answer. In the end, the Valorians took Kepler-4 to B, but victory cost them 800,000 soldiers. 800,000 dead to capture a mining colony of 2 million civilians. It was the worst casualty ratio in Valorian military history. Word spread across the galaxy. The humans would not break. Even their civilians, their miners and farmers and teachers, fought like warriors. What kind of species was this? The Meridian Collective held an emergency session to discuss their findings. Their analysts had spent months studying human history, trying to understand what made this species different. "We have found our answer," the lead analyst announced, "and it terrifies us." The chamber fell silent. "Humans have fought continuously for 200,000 years, the analyst continued. "Every generation, without pause. While we developed art and philosophy during peaceful centuries, they developed these things during constant warfare. Violence is not an aberration for them. It is the forge that made them what they are." Images appeared on the screens. Human battles throughout history. Ancient armies clashing with swords. Trenches filled with soldiers. Cities burning. Ships sinking. Nuclear explosions have destroyed themselves repeatedly and rebuilt every time. They have driven their own kind to the edge of extinction through war and survived anyway. They know they could end themselves. They have almost done it many times. The analyst paused. And still they fight. Still they refuse to surrender. This is not courage or stupidity. It is something else. Something we have no word for. Back on Earth, Dr. Hannah Choi unveiled the next phase of Project Prometheus. She stood before the military leadership, her face pale from months without sunlight, her eyes bright with exhaustion and triumph. "We have studied Valorian biology," she said. "We know their weaknesses now. We know what will hurt them, and only them." She showed them the weapons. Viruses that corrupted Valorian computer systems but left human technology untouched. Biological agents designed to target Valorian genetics. poisons that their bodies could not process. They wanted to play extinction games with us, Hannah said. They planned to slowly strangle our species over centuries. Well, we are better at extinction than they could ever imagine. We have made hundreds of species extinct on our own planet. We know how it is done. General Doyan studied the weapons. They were terrible. They were monstrous. They would kill millions. Do we want to become this? He asked quietly. Do we want to win so badly that we become worse than them? Hannah met his eyes. They were going to exterminate us. Slowly, carefully, politely. But extinction was always their plan. I do not feel guilty about fighting back with everything we have. Doyan nodded slowly. Deploy them. But we do not use the biological weapons unless we have no other choice. I want to win. I do not want to commit genocide. Understood. Colonel Minjibeek led the Ghost Division, humanity's elite special forces. They were the best of the best. Soldiers who could infiltrate anywhere, kill anyone, and vanish without trace. Operation Ghostfire was her masterpiece. 50 Ghost Division operatives inserted onto the Valorian homeworld. Not to conquer it. Not even to hold it. Just to prove they could reach it. Just to show the Valorians that nowhere was safe. They destroyed a military academy. 3,000 future officers killed in a single night. Then they vanished, slipping past security systems that had not been tested in millennia. The Valorian public panicked. They had not faced war on their own soil in 50,000 years. They had forgotten what fear felt like. Now they remembered Yunji Quan had been an intelligence operative embedded in Valorian space for a decade. She lived among them, learned their language, understood their culture, and she gathered secrets. When she leaked the documents, they spread across the galaxy in hours. Internal Valorian communications, proving that they had planned to exterminate humanity from the beginning. The redistribution order was just the first step. Within 500 years, they intended to have no humans left alive. Neutral species were outraged. 3 more council members withdrew their support from the Valorians. The war that had seemed like a simple matter of crushing an upstart species was becoming something else. Something complicated. Something dangerous. Admiral Sun Wu stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship. It was called the Unconquered, and it was the largest ship Earth had ever built. Behind it flew 200 more vessels, constructed in secret shipyards over the past 2 years. They gave us 60 years of peace, Sun Wu said to his staff. They thought they were containing us, limiting our growth, controlling our future. He looked at the fleet around him. 200 ships, where there had been 40. Weapons that had not existed 5 years ago. Soldiers who had learned to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen. They were giving us time to prepare, he said, and we used every second of it. The final battle was coming. Sun Wu could feel it. Everything humanity had built, everything they had sacrificed, would be tested soon. He thought about Yuna, still working diplomatic channels, trying to find any path to peace. He thought about Doyan, coordinating forces across a dozen star systems. He thought about all the young soldiers like Sora and Jiho who had never known a galaxy at peace. We will win, he said. It was not a prediction. It was a promise. Whatever it takes. However long it takes. We will win. The Crimson Nebula was beautiful. Clouds of red and gold gas stretched across light years, the remains of a star that had died millions of years ago. Ancient species had called it the Garden of Endings. Now, it would earn a new name. The Valorian Empire committed everything to this battle. 5,000 warships, their entire remaining fleet gathered in the nebula. This would be the end of humanity's rebellion. This would restore order to the galaxy. Admiral Sun Wu brought 400 human ships. The math still favored the Valorians by more than 10 to 1. But math had not decided this war. Math had failed the Valorians at every turn. All ships report ready, Captain Jiho announced from his position at Sun Wu's side. He had earned his place here, battle after battle, victory after victory. The Prometheus Array, Sun Wu asked, online and waiting for your command? Sun Wu nodded slowly. The Prometheus array was humanity's final weapon. Not a bomb or a virus. Something stranger. Something that broke the rules the Galaxy Council had forbidden humanity from learning. The Valorian fleet advanced in perfect formation. Thousands of ships moving as one, their commanders confident that this time numbers would prevail. They had learned from their defeats. They had adapted their tactics. They would not underestimate humans again. Admiral, one of the Valorian commanders, broadcast on an open channel, "This is your last chance to surrender. Your fleet is outnumbered. Your species is exhausted. Accept our terms now, and we will spare your civilian populations." Sunwoo smiled slightly. "I have a counteroffer. Turn your ships around. Go home. Tell your government that this war is over, and you lost." Laughter came through the channel. "You cannot be serious." "I am completely serious. You have 30 seconds to change course." The Valorian commander cut the transmission. The fleet continued to advance. "Time is up," Sunwoo said. "Activate the Prometheus array." Deep within the Unconquered, Dr. Hannah Choi watched her creation come to life. Years of forbidden research. Technologies that the elder species had banned because they feared what they could do. Now the galaxy would see. The array did not fire beams or launch missiles. It did something simpler and more terrifying. It opened doors across the battlefield. Wormholes appeared, dozens of them. Hundreds. They swallowed Valorian ships whole, transporting them instantly across the galaxy. Some ships reappeared near distant stars, years from home. Others materialized in deep space, surrounded by nothing. Others simply vanished, scattered to locations no one would ever find. The Valorian fleet broke apart. Half their ships disappeared in the first minute. The rest fell into chaos, commanders screaming orders that no one could follow. Formations collapsing as vessels tried to escape the spreading wormholes. Lieutenant Sora led her fighter squadron into the confusion. She was older now, harder, scarred from a dozen battles. But she still flew with the same skill, the same courage that had made her famous. "Go, squadron! Follow me," she called. Time to finish this. They did not need to destroy the remaining Valorian ships. They just needed to keep them running, keep them scared, keep them from regrouping. The wormholes continued to open, pulling away more vessels with every passing minute. 3 hours later, the Battle of the Crimson Nebula was over. Of 5,000 Valorian warships, fewer than 300 remained. The rest were gone, scattered across the galaxy like leaves in a storm. Humanity had lost 28 ships. The surviving Valorian commanders surrendered. They had no other choice. 2 weeks later, the human fleet surrounded the Valorian homeworld. 400 ships in orbit, weapons charged, ready to reduce the planet to ash. Billions of Valorian civilians looked up at the sky and waited to die. Ambassador Unipark broadcast to the planet below. Her face appeared on every screen, in every home, in every shelter, where terrified families huddled together. "We could destroy you," she said. Her voice was calm, measured, almost gentle. "Everything you have built, everything you love, every child and elder on your world. We could end it in an hour. Our weapons are ready. Our commanders are waiting for my order." She paused. The silence stretched across a world. "We will not." Confusion rippled through the Valorian population. This was not how wars ended. This was not what victors did. "You tried to exterminate us," Una continued. "You wanted to strangle our species slowly, watch us wither and die over centuries. You thought we were weak because our lives are short. You were wrong." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "But we are not you. We know what it means to lose everything. We know what it means to face extinction. And we know that becoming monsters to defeat monsters is no victory at all." The human fleet powered down its weapons. One by one, the ships stood down, their threats dissolving into nothing. "We demand peace," Una said. "Real peace. Equal standing in the Galaxy Council. The return of all our colonies. Reparations for the damage you caused. And a promise sworn before every species in this galaxy that you will never threaten another young species again, that Valorian governments surrendered within the hour. The Treaty of Station Prime was signed in the same great hall where Una had declared war 3 years earlier. The crystal pillars still rose toward the sky. The thrones of the elder species still stood in their circle. But everything had changed. General Doyan Li stood before the gathered representatives. He was tired. They were all tired. The war had taken something from everyone who fought it. He looked at our short lifespans and saw weakness, he said. You thought we burned out too quickly, achieved too little, mattered too little to the long arc of history. He shook his head slowly. Hugh did not understand. Our short lives are precisely why we burn so bright. We do not have millennia to achieve our goals. Every human carries the urgency of mortality in their heart. We know that our time is limited, so we use every second. We build faster. We create faster. We fight faster. He met the eyes of the Valorian representative, who looked away. That urgency makes us unstoppable. We cannot wait for things to change. We must change them ourselves now, today. That is the nature of humanity. That is what you forgot when you tried to cage us. The treaty was signed. Humanity received everything they had demanded and more. Full voting rights on the Galaxy Council. Unrestricted expansion throughout the galaxy. Reparations that would fund their growth for centuries. Other species watched and learned. The ones who had been called young, provisional, insignificant, they began requesting human military advisors, human alliance treaties, human protection. The Meridian Collective formally proposed that humanity be granted elder species status on the Galaxy Council. Several members protested. They have only been spacefaring for 3 centuries, one argued. The requirements clearly state the requirements are obsolete, the Meridian representative interrupted. In 3 centuries, humanity has accomplished what took us 30,000 years. If anything, we should be asking for their guidance. The vote was unanimous. Humanity became the first species in galactic history to achieve elder status within 500.
years of first contact.
20 years after the war ended, Admiral Sun Woo stood at a memorial on Earth. It was built in the mountains of Korea. Overlooking a valley where children played and families gathered, the names of the fallen were carved into black stone, stretching for kilometers. He was old now. His hair was white. His hands shook slightly, but his eyes were still sharp. Ambassador Yuna walked up beside him. She had aged too. They all had. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Sun Woo watched the children playing below. They were laughing, running, full of joy and life. They would grow up free. They would never bow to alien masters. They would never beg for permission to exist. They will never know what we went through, he said. They will never understand what it cost. And that is exactly how it should be, Yuna nodded. The galaxy spent millions of years building their order. We spent 3 centuries learning their rules. She smiled. And for a moment she looked like the young ambassador who had walked into the Galaxy Council so many years ago, determined and unafraid, in 10 years breaking them. Below them, a child ran to her parents, holding a flower she had picked from the field. Her laughter echoed across the valley, innocent and bright. Sun Woo closed his eyes and let the sound wash over him. This was what they had fought for. This was what it meant. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not by waiting. Not by asking. By standing up, fighting back, and refusing to accept anything less than equality. The galaxy would never forget the lesson, and humanity would never let them.